Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, the impact of the new pope on issues facing the Catholic Church and the world. Also tonight, we'll hear about efforts to increase living kidney donations. And we'll meet the authors of a book series aimed at introducing younger readers to a very active grandma. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Our story begins more than 60 years ago inside an abandoned chicken coop, where our founder discovered a retired teacher living, no home, no health care. So she said no to this injustice and yes to transforming lives. It's this drive, this compassion, that inspired AARP. Today, we empower people to choose how they live as they age. As a wise friend and fierce defender, we advocate for better health, financial security, and stronger communities. AARP, join us in making a difference.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The U.S. trade war with China took a step back today as both countries agreed to drop tariffs by 115% for the next 90 days. The agreement comes as the U.S. was moving toward a self-inflicted recession and possible supply chain meltdown. It's a clear retreat by President Trump, but the White House was all smiles over the temporary deal.
This is obviously 2 days' work, and there's 90 days more work to do to make sure that we land the plane. But, you know, the plane is right there over the runway. I don't think that there's much hope of people who think that this is going to go back. This is absolutely a sound deal.
Hassett added that the deal was a, quote, fresh start with China. It certainly made for a fresh start to the week on Wall Street. The Dow rose more than 1,100 points, or 2.8%. The Nasdaq rallied 4.3%, and the S&P increased 3.25%. Also, the U.S. dollar strengthened, and the Treasury yields improved. Other headlines: House Republicans released plans to significantly change health care policy, including cuts to Medicaid and Obamacare marketplaces. Those cuts would total around $700 million over the next decade and, according to the Congressional Budget Office, would result in an estimated 8.6 million Americans becoming uninsured, with millions more paying higher fees for doctor visits. Now, the plan is considered a compromise between Republicans who wanted more cuts to Medicaid and those in swing districts who would have to explain those cuts to their constituents. Hours after the GOP health plan was released, the president signed an executive order asking drug makers to voluntarily reduce prices in the U.S. The order includes no legal mandate and thus is considered a win for U.S. drug makers who are expecting much tougher action from the White House in regard to drug prices. And reaction to a U.S. district judge temporarily stopping the federal government's plans to transfer land in the Tonto National Forest for a massive copper mining project. The area in question, known as Oak Flat, is considered by some Native American groups as sacred. Those groups pleased with the injunction.
We couldn't grasp that we actually won, that it actually went in our favor, because we're always on the other side.
I haven't yet have children, but when I do, they're also going to carry this fight, because what you see here is a prime example of resiliency that Indigenous people have to embody.
The injunction remains in place until the U.S. Supreme Court considers a previous lower court ruling that allowed the land to be transferred for the mine. Last week's selection of a U.S. cardinal as the next pope has lots of folks wondering about the new pontiff, now known as Pope Leo XIV, and what his selection means to the Catholic Church and to social and cultural issues worldwide. Joining us now is Catherine O'Donnell from ASU School of Historical, Philosophical, and Religious Studies. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
I like the title because there is history, there's philosophy, and there's religion with this pick. Who is Pope Leo XIV?
Well, as we know, he is the first American pope, which is in itself a remarkable development. He's an Augustinian friar, also the first. So he's a member of a religious community that is devoted to learning and also to good works, to working with vulnerable people, and has been for centuries. So he's spent much of his life outside of the United States as well.
Augustinian friar, you mentioned that, and again, that is a group that focuses on what? Just outwardly good works, these sorts of...
Yeah, so the Catholic Church has different religious communities within it. Francis was a Jesuit. The new Pope is a member of the Augustinians. And their vow of poverty, they turn towards sharing.
Okay.
So he has spent his life in that community.
Was this selection a surprise?
It was absolutely a surprise. And I was laughing with some other people who kind of work on Catholicism, and we all said the one thing we were willing to predict was that it would not be an American, and we were wrong.
Why do you think he was chosen?
That's a great question. I mean, in hindsight, it does make sense. As Italian newspaper the week before the conclave said, you know, he's the least American of Americans, meaning he spoke many languages, he had lived abroad. He not to be irreverent, but he kind of checks the boxes that you want in a pope. So he does have this missionary component. He has spent his life in service to others. You can imagine him on a world stage, right? A pope is a global figure. And he also is an administrator, right? The Vatican is like the original bureaucracy. And he's had positions where he has had to know how to move the levers of a big organization.
Interesting. Okay, compare him to Pope Francis.
Yes. So I think it's important to note that he has embraced Francis's view of synodality, which is just a fancy way of saying the church should be a welcoming place in which many people, including lay people, participate in decisions. He's embraced that. But he walked out and he had, on that balcony, he was wearing more traditional papal garb. He reads Latin. There's some hope among conservative American Catholics that he will accept some of the more conservative cultural tenets that they believe in. I think that's an open question.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because the Catholic Church in America can be more conservative in many ways, but he doesn't seem quite as provocative as Pope Francis. Is that accurate?
Well, having learned not to predict, but I think that's correct. I mean, it's a little hard from what I've read and heard to imagine him walking up and down the aisle of his plane, kind of casually answering questions, which is something that Francis did. He's known as reserved and soft-spoken. But I think people are wrong to imagine that the Catholic Church can be mapped onto the American political or cultural environment. It's its own thing.
And what is the significance of this being the first pope from the U.S.?
Yeah, it is significant that it was acceptable, right? I mean, for a long time, it didn't make sense practically because Americans didn't even get to Rome until after the conclave was over half the time. And then the United States was so powerful that to have those powers, spiritual and temporal overlap, seemed threatening. I would have thought, honestly, that an American pope would be either a rebuke to Trumpism or an embrace of it, and the cardinals would not have been willing to do that. Clearly, this figure was compelling enough and seemed potentially unifying enough that the conclave felt moved to select him. And we'll see. I mean, he is an American on the world stage who is not speaking for the nation. And that is just a new and interesting thing.
It sounds as though, from what I've read about the guy and heard about the guy, that Peru is almost his home country. I mean, he is very well known in Latin America. That had to make a difference.
Oh, absolutely. He speaks 5 or 6 languages. I believe he's a Peruvian citizen. Apparently everyone in Chiclayo has their own story about him. And I think that made him seem a man of the church and not a man of the United States.
Can this particular pontiff, though, I mean, so much of the Catholic Church's growth in Latin America, in Africa, does he ring those bells? Will they listen? What has been the response on those 2 continents?
he has been embraced so far. I mean, there's been excitement in Latin America. There were a couple of African cardinals whose names were mentioned, so that may be a disappointment that one of them wasn't chosen. But we'll see. I mean, I think the thinking was he was sufficiently charismatic. I don't think he was chosen for that, but that he's not impossible to listen to.
So what do we watch for? What do we try to glean from his words and his actions?
Yeah, the church is a realm of symbols, right? So I think we'll see what decisions he makes about the Latin Mass, which is a flashpoint around which people have organized, some of whom are trying to pull the church back to something more traditional. Where does he go, right? Where does he travel first? Where does he travel next? Does he continue to have sort of synods or bring groups in to talk to him about how the church should be run? How does he think about women in the church? I mean, there are so many questions.
Wow, there's so many questions and a lot of time and a lot of issues facing the church, and it'll be interesting to see about that. And as you mentioned, Trumpism and American Catholicism and the whole 9 yards. You're going to be busy, Catherine O'Donnell, that's for sure, over at ASU. Good to have you here, though.
Thank you.
Get out!
On Finding Your Roots, Cyndi Lauper discovers a rebel.
I know I'm always fighting the man. Now I know where it comes from.
Jamie Chung's ancestor is honored.
No way. That's my cousin.
Yeah.
And Danny Trejo's relatives journey to America.
I've got history.
And Danny, they were on foot, man.
That's heavy.
Finding Your Roots.
Tuesday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
On the next episode of Patty Hinich Explores Panamericana, I continue on my journey inspired by the Pan American Highway and head to Alberta, Canada.
This is so much fun.
Where old West traditions collide with vibrant immigrant cultures, from the ranch life of a Hollywood legend.
I want to go act in a Western.
And warrior women reclaiming their heritage. It's time to hit the trail.
Tuesday night at 8 on Arizona PBS.
Kidney transplants are the most common form of living organ donation, but a shortage of donors persists amid questions and concerns surrounding kidney donation. To learn more, we welcome Dr. Carrie Jadlowick. She's a transplant surgeon at Mayo Clinic, Arizona. Welcome to Arizona Horizon.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, good to have you here. Okay, living donor kidneys, how common?
So they're probably more common than you might think. On average in the United States, we see anywhere from between 6,000 to 7,000 people come forward to be living kidney donors every year. So last year we had more than 7,000 people that came forward and donated a kidney.
The benefits of a living donor kidney. I mean, I've read that it's a shorter waiting period and fewer complications. True?
Yeah, so those are all true. So there's a really big number of people in the United States that are waiting for a kidney transplant. On average, we have around 150,000 people waiting for a kidney transplant. And unfortunately, only about 30,000 people out of that 150,000 will actually get transplanted any year. And the difference between those two numbers is due to a shortage in donors. So living kidney donors can potentially fill in that void or that gap by helping people to get a kidney transplant faster.
Now, is it true that the living kidney donor transplants, those kidneys actually function longer?
They do. So it depends again, but on average, we see that a deceased donor kidney may last anywhere from 10 to 12 years. And again, averages are made up of highs and lows. Living donor kidneys can last anywhere from 15 to 20 years.
My goodness. Okay, so we got shorter waiting period, fewer complications, they function longer. How does the matching process work? Why aren't we, obviously, a shortage of donors, but this seems like this should be on a fast track.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are unfamiliar that it's an option and also are unaware of, what steps it takes to become a potential kidney donor.
What are those steps?
Yeah, so the first step is just being interested and coming forward to be considered to be a potential kidney donor. So that's step one. Part two is actually going through an evaluation. I think that's another part that is unfamiliar to people. They're not sure of what that evaluation process might look like.
Is it with like blood tests and imaging and these sorts of things?
Yeah, so blood tests, meeting with a team of physicians and learning more about the donor's health, seeing if they are healthy to begin with, what their risks might look like with proceeding with kidney donation, and things to look out for afterwards too.
And so then you've gone through this whole process, and you're considered a good person there for. What is the process? What is the surgery like? Is it how invasive is it?
Yeah, so another good question, and the good news is that part also has gotten a lot easier over the years. So there have been a lot of advances both in the evaluation process as well as in the surgical part of donation, and so now that process is minimally invasive, and it's also approached through a fast track type situation where on average most kidney donors will probably spend about 1 night in the hospital. A lot of kidney donors feel pretty well recovered by 2 to 3 weeks out after their surgery, and then they're able to resume all of their normal activities, usually within 6 weeks.
That's able to resume all of your activities, but you've just donated an organ. You don't have 2 kidneys anymore.
I know, isn't that amazing?
It is amazing, but I think that's difficult for people to get past.
Yeah. It's honestly easier and simpler, I think, than people realize, and a lot of transplant centers across the United States, including ours here in Mayo Clinic, have worked to make that process easier for donors. We know that people are busy, they have complex lives, and so the easier that process can be, we know that that'll make it simpler to even come forward and potentially donate.
Now, but there are risks involved. What are some of those risks?
Yeah, so there's small risks. I think you can think of it in 2 aspects. So one are risks related to the surgery itself, and so those risks are all low. They're all less than 1%. We have a lot of experience with the surgery. The first kidney donation happened over 70 years ago in the United States.
Wow.
So we've come a long way, and we've had a lot of advances in surgical technique. So that risk is very low. And the other component to think about is also medical risk of potentially developing chronic kidney disease.
Yeah, well, yeah, you got 1 kidney now.
You do.
Do you think, it seems like it's dialysis and then it's transplant. Is this easier on the body, easier all the way around than dialysis?
For sure. So, the bridge, I would say, between dialysis and transplant, ideally is getting a transplant in between, which we call a preemptive kidney transplant. And so that's where someone is followed by, a physician. They're aware that they have kidney disease. They get referred early for transplant, and then we can start the process early of looking for a potential donor.
So it would be an alternative to dialysis. You would never start dialysis?
Correct.
Wow, that sounds like medical thought must have changed quite a bit on that, hasn't it?
It's the preferred approach, and it's what we try to, inform our patients about and our providers. But there are still gaps, obviously, in getting people referred early.
Yeah, I think the idea that forget dialysis, go for the that's just hard for people. Real quickly, before you go, the difference between a living kidney and living liver donations. Liver, you just need a little bit, right? Is that true?
That is true. So a portion of your liver gets donated in living liver donation versus in kidney donation, it's the whole kidney.
Yeah, okay. So basically, when we're talking about living kidney donation, this is the wave of the future. This is probably going to be something that we look back on and say, holy smokes, I wish we'd have knew more about this back in the day.
I think so. We've already learned more. Now I think it's just a matter of spreading that information out to everyone else. So,
all right.
And the public.
And that's what you're doing, Carrie Jadwick. Thank you so much, Doctor. Good to have you here on Living Donor Kidneys.
Thank you. Thanks.
In the spring of 2020, as the country goes into lockdown, outside, the garden is coming alive. As a wildlife filmmaker, I knew there were revelations here that could be just as amazing as anything I'd ever filmed.
These bees are just go,
Discovering the secret life of bees took me on a journey I was not expecting.
Wednesday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, a deal to lower tariffs for 90 days seems to cool the trade war between the U.S. and China. That's coming up at 6 on Arizona PBS.
Tonight is part of our monthly AARP sponsors segment that highlights issues important to older adults in Arizona. We hear about a book series that looks to close the generational gap between young readers and their grandmas. The series is called The Adventures of Grandma McBee, and the latest installment in the series is titled Grandma McBee, How Slow Can She Be? The authors of the series are Judy Danko Basham and Jackie Kennedy Dudo, and they join us right now. Judy, Jackie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Judy, I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
Who is Grandma McBee?
Well, you know what? Grandma McBee is a little bit of my mom that passed about 5 years ago, and her grandmother.
My grandmother, she lives on a farm in Iowa. She is 98 years old, and she is still living on her own and doing the things throughout her day.
And in the book, Grandma McBee just gets her, she moves around, she gets her, always has a smile on.
Absolutely, 100%.
When you're writing for younger readers, Judy, start with you. When you're writing for younger readers, that's big, isn't it? Because there's a lot of drawing. There's a lot of illustration in here.
You know what? Believe it or not, the children has really, they've been inspired by Grandma McBee. They've shown a lot of kindness and empathy when I go out and we do storytelling. And they have just loved her and just are infatuated by her.
And the idea is she may use a walker here, but she goes wherever she wants to go.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So with the series, we're going to actually see her progress in her aging. So right now she's using a walker, but eventually, you know, we're going to see her get into a fender bender and a couple of books, and then she decides to give up her keys, and so she's no longer driving, and kind of seeing that journey.
What kind of car is she driving right now?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a red Volkswagen Beetle.
Yes, it's cherry red, isn't it?
Cherry red Volkswagen Beetle.
And her adventures are kind of everyday adventures, going to the hair salon, these sorts of things?
Yeah, going to the hair salon, going to the doctor, going.
Yes.
The next book is Grandma McBee Comes to Visit Me, and she flies to the sky.
Yes.
So,
all right, so we know who she was inspired by, but what inspired you guys to write this series?
good question. So when my mom passed away, I had the pleasure to work at a retirement center, and they taught me the importance of life and to embrace life in every day. And so I decided to write this book, and I asked my best friend Jackie, will you write this book with me? And we realized that there is not enough children's books that talk about our aging population. So we thought that it would be great to teach about kindness and empathy and understanding for our growing population, for our seniors.
Was it difficult to write a children's book?
You know, it had its struggles, but for us, we work with children every day. We teach early childhood classes. We work with I work with high school students. Judy works with the college students who are all engaging with children. And so for us, it was a lot of, okay, what do we know about children and applying our knowledge in early childhood?
And as far as the illustrations are concerned, obviously with kids' books, very important.
Very important, yes. Jackie, you want to go ahead and talk about our new illustrator?
Uh-oh, you got a new illustrator.
Yes, we do. Yes. So with the first book, we went with an illustrator through our publisher, and it was a very interesting process for us. It was a lot about the details because we know that children, they zone in on those pictures, and the pictures tell the whole story. And we just felt like there were some inconsistencies, and so we started hunting around for a new illustrator, and we found a new illustrator, Jason, who is going to be doing all the illustrations for our second book, and we're very excited to merge his design with our vision.
And again, what we're talking about here is a way, this sounds like perfect bedtime reading.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this would be perfect. But a way to teach kids empathy, understanding, the whole bit.
And you know what? It's not just necessarily teaching empathy and understanding for our senior population, but it's really to bring in for kindness for all. So that's just the point of teaching. You know, we're molding the next generation, and that's really important to Jackie and I. We read children's books every single day, and we realize that there's not enough books to teach about our elders and our growing population.
How do you do that, though, how do you teach without teaching? You know what I mean? Because kids they're pretty wise. They know when they're being forced to learn something.
Oh.
Yeah, you know, I think it just really comes down to those genuine experiences, you know, having those open conversations. And one of the things that we include in our book are discussion questions at the back that get parents talking with their children, because it goes much more beyond just what's written on the pages.
What kind of reaction have you had so far to Grandma McBee?
The children absolutely love her.
I dress up as her.
Yes.
And
Judy
I go out.
dresses up as
I
Grandma
do. I
McBee.
go out and I dress up in the community, and I have done several events in our community talking about the importance of kindness. And you know what I say? The best gift is free, and that shows kindness in our hearts.
And reaction from the kids, obviously. What about moms and dads?
You know, the parents really gravitate towards it. I've noticed a lot of parents who they say, oh my gosh, this is even a great message for my grandchildren to learn. So even grandparents are seeing it and saying, wow, I need to buy a copy of this book so I can share it with my grandchildren. And I think that too gives them a legacy of something that they're leaving behind to their grandchildren.
So, yeah, please.
Oh, and also to piggyback on that, it also inspires our aging population that they can still do so much. Grandma McBee, you know, her knees weak as they're weak as they cross the street, and she might be a little bit forgetful, but you know what? Doesn't matter our age. We just need to make sure that we keep on going.
So real quickly, what's next for Grandma McBee?
Well, she's going to fly through the sky, and then she's going to go and visit her grandchild, and then eventually she's going to get into her fender bender, and we're just going to continue to see that progression of aging to help them understand. It starts out just moving a little bit slower, but eventually it is going to, you know, take a toll, but they can still do things, and they still want to be a part of those memorable moments with their children and grandchildren.
And we have 7 books written.
Oh my goodness, you've already got them written?
Yeah.
Yes.
We do. It's
All
been
right,
a process.
well-
This has been a 4-year-long process, and we're
All
very
right.
proud of it. And we just had our Grandma McBee doll patented, so she's all ready to go.
And she's always got a smile on her face,
Always.
as you both should and do. And congratulations, it's great stuff. And best of luck to you.
And we do want to say that Grandma McBee says, life's an adventure. Take it slow.
All right, take it slow. I'll
Thank
take
you.
that under consideration. Good to have you
Absolutely.
both here.
Thank you very much.
And
Pleasure.
that's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. She just took a dive. You
She's tired.
have a great evening.